Hello, hello. All right, so today's tip of the week. All right, so we were on yesterday. We talked and we kind of did a trivia night, which that was really fun. I liked it. And tonight we're going to talk about Basil versus Criterion referenced assessments. I always talk to you guys about if I learn something new, all right, and I know a lot, but if I learn something new, I'm always going to share that with you, okay? Because guess what? I don't know everything. And I think that's great because I love to learn. And if I learn it and it's important, I'm going to share it with you. Now, I knew what assessments were. I knew, that normally norm-based assessments is how things go and in reference to assessing a child and evaluating a child in comparison to the whole in regard to their education and their grade level and their age. But there are other ways to measure. And there's a better way out there. I'm so glad that, I had another IEP meeting today, and I'm very picky about what assessments are given, and this child had an assessment before, or assessments before I got a hold of them. So now we have, assessments that were given that were not appropriate, and the ones that were given that were appropriate, I'm finding this a lot. The assessors, okay, that can be the teacher, that can be, usually it's psychologist and the OT, PT, etc. I'm finding that they're not signing their damn assessments. That makes it invalid. So those of you who are joining me live, welcome. My name is Raven Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP. I thank you for joining me. Make sure to share. Yes, we're giving away some stuff tonight, okay? I have my 3 names, and hopefully you guys trust me that I picked them out of the hat. So we will address that later on this evening, and we're going to quickly go through these verbiages of assessments and what they mean and why you need to pay attention to these and why it's important to mention it when you are dealing with assessments and reevaluations, which you guys should be going through right now, okay? So if you are new to catching me live, post a 1 below, okay? Make sure to share this, okay? Share this with everybody. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. So a 1 below, all right, if it's your first through third time. I'll give you 3 times to be new, and then you are an oldie but goodie. So if you're an oldie but goodie, you guys know what to do. You post a 2 below. All right, so let's get started, okay? Make sure you guys share. Yesterday we had a lot of shares, and I thank you guys for that. Make sure you click above at notifications, okay? And make sure that you know when I go live. I've been very busy lately, and sometimes I forget to post, hey guys, I'm going live. So if you guys click notifications here and over on the group, which is, if you put it in the search bar, it's Autism Mama Rocks the IEP group, you can join the group. Yeah, it's a private group, so you're not going to find it, one of those things where you have to be accepted into the group, okay? So hi, Kim and Nadia and Michelle and Tina. Welcome, welcome. Make sure you guys say hi. Don't be strangers, okay? So I'm gonna wait for maybe another minute, and then we're gonna talk about these assessments. So hopefully everybody had a good day. It is what's today? Tuesday? Monday, right? I don't even know my days, guys. Oh my gosh. So I hope that you had a good Monday. Okay. Did anybody start school for the first time today? Anybody? Let me know. Hi, Roxy. How are you? Welcome, welcome. We're waiting on people to kind of hop on. Make sure you guys share. Get people to hop on. My oldies but goodies, you guys know what to do. And we're going to get started. Hello, hello. All right. What does we DOD mean? What does that mean? Oh, you did. Ha! Okay, I got you. Hey, Cynthia. Hey, Jan. Welcome. I'm excited to have you guys on. All right. So make sure you guys share, and share. All right. So I'm going to start before I go into all the other assessments that you need to make sure you know about. Okay. I'm going to talk about the Basil assessment. All right. I find this very interesting and I love it. Okay. I'll tell you why I love it in a minute. All right. So most tests, for example, a speech pathologist, okay, they use assessments called a Basil assessment. Okay. There's Basil rules on the assessment that's given. Okay. And it's given across a wide range of clients, all right, and abilities, and not all test items are necessary. Okay. So it's, again, individualized. All right. What's interesting about this, okay, is Basil rules enable you to establish where to start. I love this, guys. I love this, okay? Now, do you know what that means? All right. So, for example, all right, if you're testing a 6-year-old child, okay, for speech, all right, you want to test them, all right, under the age that they are. All right, so a Basil assessment tests them under their age and gradually moves up to gauge where they are. I find that fascinating because it's genius. Okay, so it starts your child, say your child's in 6th or 7th grade. Okay, then you go down to, say, 3rd, 1st, whatever grade, and then they progressively, they know it, they know it, they know it, they know it, and then they kind of stop. So you know the baseline. You started at 1st, 2nd, whatever grade. Your child's in 7th grade, and they stopped at 5th grade. So it's an amazing test because it starts them below, like, and it can go as far as you want to go, and then it builds them up to where they are, knowingly that they're a certain age. So the goal is to move them up to, if it's a 7th grader, you want to take them from, say, 1st or 2nd grade, and you build them up to 7th grade, right? But we all know that a lot of our kids are not on grade level, and that's okay. So this Basil assessment is genius, okay? It is genius, all right? Genius. It is the way you want your child assessed. When you ask for a I've talked about this a lot because reevaluations have been, you know what? You don't know the words that come out of my mouth for this, okay? They're a pain in the you know what, all right? Because I'm fighting for specific tests for your individual child with unique needs. So I don't want the Wyatt or the Whisk or the Vinland, all given all the time. You have numbers to them, okay? You got the 5, 3, 2, and it's kind of like, oh, this is confusing. You want to have a test that's solid, all right? Nothing wrong with the Wyatt or the Whisk. Nothing. But it's given you kind of a roundabout. It's more about IQ and focuses in kind of that aspect. All right. It's neither are bad tests. Okay. What's important to remember is they're not enough. A lot of schools, and you have a Pearson owner and a Kaufman owner. Okay. And you want to make sure, because the school systems will typically only do 3 assessments. They'll likely do like the Wyatt or the Whisk. They'll do the Vinland maybe. And then sometimes they'll do something else, like an adaptive behavior type assessment that's usually a fillable, okay? Maybe an observation, etc. Not enough. How's that gonna tell us what's going on? What if your child has reading issues? The Wyatt and the Whisk is not necessarily going to tell them if they have reading issues. Now, it's going to say, okay, the child struggled with comprehension, or the child struggled with this. But that doesn't mean anything. That just means that they, it could mean a learning disability. It may not mean anything specific. And we want to know specifics in reference to this one child, not that they have trouble with. Obviously, they're being assessed because they have trouble with something. Okay. And in the triennial, they just try to say, oh, we did the triennial. Let's just, throw these 3 assessments together and we did it. We accomplished what law states. if you want your kids really evaluated and you want to know where they are, you want to know where their baseline is, the Basil Assessment is the way to go. It's the type of test given, okay? For example, today, I was going back and forth with the speech therapist as to this child who has significant speech delays. Make sure to share this, guys. Post a 1 below if you are new. Post a 2 below if you are an oldie but goodie. Hey, Stephanie. So it was interesting because I did not know there was a difference between something that's created from a norm referenced, which I'm very familiar with, which is, you know, if the child's in 6th grade, you're kind of generalizing it from there. And if they can't do 6th grade work, then you kind of work your way backwards. Where if you start yourself lower and work your way to where they are, it's not necessarily based off their age. All right. It's based off where they are presently, which is what you want to find out anyway. So I found this really interesting and I think it's amazing. So I want you guys to really know about this. I want you guys to use it. I want you guys to understand that it's a better test. And in the end, the speech therapist actually agreed because it actually came out of her mouth. And then she kind of backtracked a little bit because she had an idea. I think she got the feeling possibly that the chairperson that was running the meeting was not too fond of the fact that she was giving information that was good. And I'm finding that a lot. You have your administration, and that's including psychologists and so forth sometimes, okay? And then you have your teachers and your assessors and people that are and service providers that want to give you the information. That's why a lot of people are here are over on my group that are like, I'm a teacher, I just want to give more information. We have Jan here who's a special education teacher. She just wants more information. But the thing is they should, okay, be able to tell us things and not be reprimanded because they told us the truth. Okay, and it came out. She said the truth. She said, had I done the test, because that was the other issue, is the people that did the test weren't there. That's a problem, okay? So what happens with that is that's actually a violation of your rights to participate as an active and adequate IEP member, okay? Which is a procedural violation and a violation actually of FAPE because the parents were unable to participate in the IEP meeting as a equal team member. Okay, and that's actually a procedural violation, but it is also a denial of FAPE in this situation. Okay, so it could actually be either substantive violation or procedural violation when a parent is unable to participate in the IEP meeting as an equal team member. So it can go either way. Well, what IDEA states is if the procedural or substantial violation has anything to do with the free and appropriate public education, meaning the child does not get delivered educational benefit based off of the parent not knowing this information. Okay, so the parent not knowing evaluated information, all right, because the assessors who gave the assessment were not present, so therefore the other psychologists and everybody that was there were not able to answer all questions. We're not able to put it all on the table. They were able to give their subjective opinion, all right, is basically what happened. And so these are things that I process because I'll tell you why I process this. I don't say anything. I actually really liked the speech therapist. What I didn't like was the fact that she was cut off. And, you know, I asked her, you know, because I repeat everything people say. Everybody knows I teach that in my Rock the IEP course. If you have not gotten my course, you got to get it, guys. You got to get it. Let me know and I'll post the link. It takes you from A to Z. It teaches you my PPN system and it works. But aside from that, it's important to ask questions. I always ask questions. And it's important to understand that this speech therapist was great. And she explained that had she done the assessment, because this assessment was not a Basil-based assessment. It was not that way run. It was more a Criterion-based assessment, okay? Which, guess how it came out? Invalid. No response, no score, nada. Because why? Because it doesn't start them lower than where their age level is. You need to start lower. That doesn't mean they don't know. That doesn't mean you're starting low because of any certain reason. It means you're starting low so they can actually do something. So they actually can put something on paper for that assessment. How important is that? Huge. So if you start them way over here and it's just not where they are, then they stop because they started on a 14-year-old level and the child's 14, so bam, can't go anywhere else. And that's not okay. They did not do a norm based, okay, which is okay. All right, that's based off, that still is kind of second to Basil because at least that's based off of the general population of children of that age. Okay, does that make sense? Am I confusing everybody? Hopefully you guys are catching on to this. All right, so let me explain. If you are testing a 6-year-old, all right, I'm gonna read this to you. For language development, the test developers might have you start the test with items appropriate for 5.5 years old. Mind you, the child's 6, okay? Just to be sure the child understands the tasks given to him. Some practice with items can be done. You should not need to administer items intended for 3 or 4-year-olds. So it always needs to be a grade based, all right? And then play with it and then build up, all right? It goes on to say, typically the start point in any test, subtest, or series, all right, of items is set at a level of 90% or more of all children in that age and responded to correctly, all right? So this helps reduce the testing time and ensures that it's administered appropriately. All right, so basically when you take a child who's 6, 7, 8, 9, and you start lower than where they are, and you don't have to start like 6 months lower, you can start 2 or 3 years lower because that might be where the child more than likely or possibly could be. All right, and then you build it up, and then at least you have documentation for that evaluation. You can actually say, okay, this is a 10-year-old child on a 2nd grade level. Whatever the decision and the results are, you at least want results, right? All right, so let's move forward. Does anybody have questions about that? Is there anything that is confusing about that at all? Don't feel bad. You can ask questions, guys. Okay. And if you're hopping on here, make sure you post a 1 below if you are new, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. All right. So a Criterion referenced assessment, like we just discussed, all right, is really like a standardized assessment somewhat because you're giving a child an assessment based off their age. So if you have a 10-year-old child taking an assessment that is for 10-year-old children and that grade level, and it's really not based off a grade level, it's based off of age, you're not going to get the response that you want, if anything, okay? So we're dealing with a less than 1 score. It was unable to be administered, unable to have any type of results other than the parents' comments to questions and then observation type things and that sort of thing. So that's really crucial. Okay, so you're hearing me talk about evaluations a lot because when I take a client on right now specifically, we need your whole scholastic file and records for the past 2 to 3 years. We need reevaluations, specific reevaluations based on your child's individual needs. And I kind of dissect that once I see all the paperwork. All right. And I hear you. You say, oh, he's struggling in reading. He's been struggling in reading for 3 years, blah, blah, blah. And then I know, okay, there's a reading issue here. So we need to focus specifically on tests that are specific to reading. All right. And if it's math or language arts or vocabulary, you know what I mean? Or if they're nonverbal, then it's pretty easy to figure out what type of test they need. Now, school systems don't do this. They'll do a generalized speech, they'll do a generalized OT, PT, etc. But they will not do specific tests like, for example, the CTOP 2, which is on phonological processing and is good for any child with auditory processing, with any type of reading issue, comprehension, vocabulary, any of that, decoding, all of the reading issues. It pinpoints it, and it even would show if the child has signs of dyslexia and apraxia and dyspraxia. All those things would be founded there. All right, you also have the CLEF 5, which is a very decent test as well. And I actually like putting them together, all right? And school systems hate putting them together, all right? Because for me, if a child is struggling in reading, you have the CTOP that's going to grasp a whole lot of rock solid data for reading. And then you have that CLEF 5, which is somewhat like the Wyatt and the Wisp, but specifically for reading. So it's around about, test that's very objective, but is in whole for reading, where the CTOP 2 is specific for reading in regards to phonological processing, auditory processing, how the child's taking in the receptive and expressive language. All of those things go together. I've had to fight for children that are nonverbal, have reading issues, and have math issues because they go together, and the school system is like, oh, we don't want to give them any more speech because we don't want to take them out of their class. I'm like, well, who the hell cares if you're taking them out of the class? Because if you don't give them more speech, you don't give them direct reading, and you don't give them the things that they need, they're never going to be able to go into the LRE and actually function. You have to give them the services that they desperately need so that they can go into the least restrictive environment and function appropriately with accommodations and modifications. But if you take a child that is nonverbal or having trouble with speech, and that's a big issue, okay? It could be that is part of their disability in the IEP, or it could be that's just a major disability, okay? And then you have a child with, if there's speech issues, typically there's reading issues, unless like apraxia, sometimes they can read and you just don't know because they're not verbalizing it, okay? So with them, and with a lot of nonverbal, they can point. You can have different things in place to where you know that there's some comprehension there and that there's processing there. Just because it can't come out doesn't mean that it's not going in and processed. It's just not coming out, okay? Which is an apraxia issue, that it doesn't come out as it should, okay? But other things can be put in place that can substitute for that. All right. So it's kind of like if an accident happened and you don't have an arm, right? You're going to compensate and you're going to figure it out, and it's going to work out because you're going to figure it out. Okay. And, the same thing there. So you want to make sure that the right assessments are being done. I can't instill that in you enough, and I can promise you, I will promise you, it will be a fight. If it's a fight for me, it's going to be a fight for you. And you can't give up. You can't let it go because it's hard, okay? And it's hard. And it's taxing because you're fighting and fighting and fighting and arguing because they don't want to hear you, because they don't want to give that test, all right? Another fight is the BCBA doing the FBA. So, I'm actually putting together an email to recap a little bit of this meeting. And, I'm going to have to say, you know what? You guys didn't do sufficient assessments. You guys came up with nothing. We had reevaluations and they have zero information for us. All right. Even the psychoeducational, she went through the whole psychoeducational. All right. She got some stuff, but nothing concrete. Nothing. So everything was non-existent. And you have this child that still needs to have educational benefit. So that is learning virtually right now. That in their IEP, I had to go through and make sure that they put school/virtual, because that's one thing you got to look out for. When I looked at this IEP, because as they talk, I'm scrolling through the IEP and just taking notes and being mindful, because you don't want to be rushed and miss something. So I'm always taking notes throughout the whole IEP when other people are talking or whatever. So I'm constantly looking at things. And, I noticed that the IEP that they were supposed to amend and fix, they didn't. they actually put that all the services, and they put the location, they put school. And this is a state, New York, okay, that is not in school. So we have an IEP that they put in place and stated the location would be at school. So do you know what that would have meant if the parent signed that? It would have meant that that child would have gotten no services until they went back to school. You got to pay attention to these things. You got to make sure you catch that, okay? Another thing that I noticed and I, let them know about was as needed. That's a big no-no. All right? What does as needed mean? Those are words that you need to get rid of, okay? As needed. No. It needs to say daily, not as needed. We'll give it to them as needed. Well, how do you know if it's needed if they're nonverbal? Are they going to tell you? How do you know? What does as needed mean? Does it mean that you're going to give it to them after lunch maybe because that's when they need it? Are you going to give it to them in the morning because they're tired and it's as needed time? That doesn't even make sense to me, okay? It's going to be daily, 5 times a day, 4 times a day, 3 times a day, all day. It doesn't matter, but it needs to specify something, okay? So if your child has a device, like a communication type device, iPad type of thing, never have it say as needed. It needs to say daily or assessments, if it's just done at assessments, or whatever it may be. Oh, by the way, guys, I am in my room because my floor is getting redone. So I am making my room, my office for the next couple days while I get things together. So, yeah, so these are big deal things, guys. Big deal things. I mean, it may sound tedious. It may sound boring. It may sound like, I don't want to hear about assessments. But I'm telling you, when an assessment's done on your child and it screws up and the right assessments weren't given, or the type of assessment wasn't given that should be given, or how the assessment was given at all, like Criterion referenced, Norm referenced, Basil referenced, okay? They're standardized type tests that have to be done in a specific way of how it's delivered. And that is key, all right? So the Basil one was more new to me. I was used to more of the Criterion and norm-based. Norm-based, always just remember, it's your child compared to other kids their age. Just remember that, okay? Criterion-based is based off their age, all right? So, one's age, one's other kids in their grade level, age, etc. All right, all over the United States. All right, so norm is U.S. based, that child's age and grade. All right, Criterion based is based off your child's age. All right, Basil is where they start lower than your child's age and build to where it caps, meaning where your child is presently. So that could be what their age is. It could be under their age, but at least it was started at a place where a baseline could be created where you find actually where the present level actually is, which is, in my opinion, the way to go, okay? Because you won't have situations like just happened, which is no assessment score. They had nothing, guys, nothing. No score. All right. So now I'm putting in a letter, and I'm gonna have this parent, as long as she's open, which I know she is, it's gonna be straight up an IEE, and I'm gonna specify what test they're gonna give because their test was non-existent. So they can't tell me, and this is one thing they tried to argue with, and it irritates the hell out of me. Don't argue with me, okay, about something you don't know. Well, there's no showing of that, so why would we do XYZ? Well, there's nothing showing that the child shouldn't have it. So how are we going to know? You don't know, I don't know, the school doesn't know. The only way we're going to know is to try it. Okay? So don't let them argue, because when I say that, they stop. All right, they just stop. How are you going to say, it's like ESY. Nope, your kid can't have ESY. Well, why not? Because they're passing, they're fine. Well, how do you know they're going to be passing in 9 months? How do you know that they're going to be passing in 6 months? I don't know if they're going to be passing or they're going to be in grade level in 6 months. How do you know? Start asking questions like that. Seriously, you gotta ask these questions. You gotta stick up for what is right and making sure what is and should be provided to your child is across the board healthy, is appropriate, is individualized, and is specific to their need. Okay? So there's your tip of the day. All right? So pay attention to those assessments. I really, really feel that this is going to be a huge issue right now. It's interesting with all this COVID how we're falling into some area of issue, if you will, that schools are not wanting to do this because your child was gone for 6 months. So why would they want to do accurate assessments and know that your child is behind, possibly? And know that your child is going to need compensatory services, which is 100% what I'm going to ask for. So when you have a test that's completely invalid and I'm asking for compensatory services, I dare you to argue with me. I dare you, really. Argue with me that this child doesn't need compensatory services when the assessment that you gave was invalid. You came up with nothing but subjective data. And I argued with them about that today. You know, they said, oh, well, you know, I was able to observe and blah, 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 blah. I was like, that's great. But if I observed, I may come up with something different. And if the speech therapist observed, she may come up with something different. So who's to say what you observed is actually accurate? It's just an opinion. That's it. That's it. Because if you take, it's not saying she's not qualified, okay, if you will. This was the psychologist. It's not saying she's not qualified. But who's to say I'm not qualified? Which I am. Just like the speech therapist. She's qualified. You take each of us, all three of us, put us in a room with the student, 30 minutes, each of us. I can guarantee you we're going to come up with something different in regard to this child. We're going to write up something different. We may have some similar things, but when you have something that you're basing it off an observation, which children act differently at different times and with different people, you're going to come up with different things. So to solely focus on someone's subjective data, which is an opinion, that is subjective data. Y'all aren't going to like this because I always kind of steer parents away from this, is I don't care what your opinion is. I know it's right and I respect it. I know in your gut, you know what's going on with your kids. I know, and I listen because that's how I'm able to find the loopholes in what's going on. All right. But what you say, okay, if you just said, you know, Sarah has a lot of trouble in reading. You need to, you know, give her a one-on-one because she's just not getting reading. She's not understanding it. She needs a one-on-one of direct therapy because it's not clicking. It's not working for her. Do you see how that's an opinion based off of, hey, it's not working. Sarah needs this because she's not doing well in reading. Where if you actually said in the progress reports that you have no data to support, in the documentation of the IEP and in other notes that you wrote to the parent and in other assessments from a year ago, it states that reading across the board has been an issue. So since reading is from last year to present in all the progress reports, it's noted in the IEP and in the IEP present levels, we need to now address this issue big time because it should have been brought to the table that there is a deficit there and change should have been made. It should have come from the educator to say, hey, Sarah's having a lot of issues in reading. We need to come back to the table as an IEP team and discuss what we need to put in play because this isn't working. That's what you guys got to focus on too, is school systems are not coming to you like they should. Again, a procedural violation. If your child is struggling for something for a significant period of time, that is, you know, definitely a school year, okay? And so the next year you see repetitive goals, or the next year you see that those goals from the year before haven't been mastered and things are not looking right. that means that the school system, and if they haven't come to you and said, hey, this isn't working, they know it's not working. Why are we going to work on the same goals for 2, 3, 4 years? Something is not processing. All right. And it's more than likely not the kid. It's probably how they are being taught. How is it being taught to them? How is it being done? How is it being shown to them? What are you saying when you're teaching it to them? Sometimes kids don't connect with certain people, and therefore they're not going to take in what could be taken in because there's no connection there. And you have to be open, and I've said this to teams all the time, you have to be open to changing things up because it's not working. It could be a work thing. It could be a people thing. It could be a surroundings thing. Whatever it is, you got to start picking and choosing and figuring out and trying to put all this puzzle together, even if it's frustrating. But you have to somehow put this puzzle together so that you can put it together and it can finally work. And that's when your child starts making progress in lieu of their circumstances, which by law is what, guys, should be happening. And a lot of times today it is not. And we're going through COVID. We're going through a rough time. Parents are going through a rough time. Parents are freaking out because FAPE isn't being provided because it's being done virtually. Kids aren't learning. Kids are walking around. They're not paying attention to the computer. Who wants to sit and look at a computer all day of someone talking to them, especially a child with special needs? And so the information and whatever it is that they're doing on the computer, and I'm not saying for all kids, is not being processed. So there's nothing being learned. And so it's important to address that as well. I've been reading on a lot of things that has not really been put out there really. There are provisions out there where it doesn't matter if the school system, and I mentioned this last night, that it doesn't matter if the school system is, my computer's going to die, so I got to get ready. It doesn't matter if the school system is closed. So unless that area, okay, is completely closed and, like restaurants aren't open, daycares aren't open, and so forth, then school systems can actually have kids come into the school, a special needs child who may need something one-on-one, or they can provide educators to go out to that child's home. Okay, that can be provided. Can it happen in all circumstances? Can it happen for all children? No, but it is an option out there that can in fact be put in place. And it can in fact be put in place in all states. And California is one that's super strict on different things, but that's one of them that is actually doing this. And the districts are just, completely opposing it. But yet OSEP is the one that told them that that needs to happen. And so you have to know, what is allowed and what is not allowed so that you can fight for the right thing. And always look for the loophole. There's always a loophole. When something's being done wrong, there's a loophole. Okay? Because when the school system isn't doing right by your child, all right, meaning providing an IEP that is adequate to their individual needs, unique needs, specific to them. All right. So when that's not happening, then FAPE isn't being provided. All right. The school system leaves things alone and doesn't come back and say, hi, how are you, Jessica? Make sure you guys post a 1 below if you're new, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Let me get my charger real quick. Hang on, guys. Okay, I'm coming, guys. Okay, so what I want you to understand is you have to look at all the technicalities, okay? I'm a researcher, so I'm always hunting stuff down. But one thing I've found, and this is just the honest to God's truth, guys, is thank you. Yes, post a 1 below if you're new, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Has the Zoom screen where he can interact and write. That's awesome. Yay. So you want to make sure that FAPE is being provided. FAPE isn't always just provided because your child has an IEP. You want to make sure that you and your rights are being adhered to and that you are fully able to participate in the IEP meeting. To be able to do that, your documentation has to be given to you. Data, okay? You have to have the right data in front of you, especially for a reevaluation or an evaluation. If you have not been provided that data, or that data is inconclusive and there's no response in the data, then you're not being provided the right and accurate information to be able to adequately really participate at all, which is a violation of FAPE. It can inhibit the child's learning and therefore is a procedural violation. Now, there's violations that are substantive, which are less than, but the most serious substantive is not adhering to the IEP as it is written and with fidelity. All right. Now, when you have a bunch of substantive violations put together, it equals a procedural violation. All right. And then, of course, procedural violations are the more serious violations, if you will. Okay. But a violation is a violation is a violation. Okay. And all schools should be held accountable for violating your rights, your child's rights, and the right to have a free and appropriate public education. One thing that's important too in regards to a free and appropriate public education is what I was just saying, which is the school coming to you. If something is not right, okay, your child's not progressing, your child's, kind of at a standstill, your child's had repetitive goals, all of those things mean that the team needs to come to you. Whoever it is that's in charge, they need to come to you and they need to discuss with you what is going on. My IEP meeting was another fail, but things are looking up better now. Good. Hi, Renita. How are you? Hi, Jess. How are ya? Jenny, welcome. Lindsay, hello, hello. We have Nadia. It's like you know my situation perfectly. We have Michelle. This is why I requested an IE. Yeah. What tests are specific for handwriting? Well, there's none specific for handwriting, but there's lots of assessments. Like an OT would be more, an occupational therapy type assessment would be handwriting. Even the Wyatt and the WISC, because it does a general kind of overall of things. So if you want to throw handwriting into it, it would be OT combined with the Wyatt or WISC. Okay. So, because that's not more specific in regards to like a subject that's imperative, if that makes sense. Handwriting, believe it or not, is not so much even a daily living, because people are typing now. So, but it is very important, and I'm really big on that. I think that kids should learn how to write to where they can write a check legibly and then start with typing. So start looking at different programs called typing.com. There's different things out there that kids can practice with that sort of thing. All right. Hi, Shammy. How are you? Hi, Ruth. Hi, Chas. How are ya? Hi, Aaron and Marlene and Lacey and Stephanie. All right. All right. So does anybody have any questions in regards to assessments? These are really important right now. And I just want you guys to get this right so that your kids get the right assessments for them. And you can, rest assured that, everything's going to be okay. And then, you're able to read them appropriately and make sure that it's all there, So I'll go ahead and post your questions if you have questions. All right. And then we will move forward to giveaways. So if you are new, make sure that you are posting a 1 below. All right. And if you're an oldie but goodie, make sure you're posting a 2 below. All right. 1 below if you're new, 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. You got me? All right. Does everybody understand the assessments? What it means, what you should say, all of those things. Does anybody have questions on that? So let me know if you have questions on that. No? Not so much? All right, so I'm going to name you my peeps, guys, my peeps. All right, so we have, are you ready? Are you guys ready? Did you guys share? Because today's the first day. You want your name down, so you gotta share. All right. So the first name is Cindy K. I think it's Pugh. All right. That is the first name. Okay. So Cindy K. Pugh. So if you are out there, PM me. All right. You have won either a $25 gift card to Amazon or an hour session with me to consult and discuss and do whatever it is you want to do. Okay? I wanted to ask what assessment can be requested specifically when the child is failing in most classes, but the IEP is stage as OHI? No, that's his disability category. OHI is one of the 13 disability categories within IDEA. So, the next name, are you guys ready? I'm looking at my Word document, y'all. All right, is Yasnef Mai. And that's 1 hour with me or a $25 gift card to Amazon. I probably should up the gift card to Amazon. But basically, it's a better deal with me. But I'm cool with the gift card. I will send it to you through Venmo. All right? The next person. Are you guys ready? Okay, hold on. Let me answer some questions. I get that 1 hour, it takes sometimes beyond 4 hours to do a complete, IEP makeover in the 4 hours, but it's awesome. So I've gotten a lot of questions about that, so I'll explain that to you in a few. All right. The next person is, I think her name is Janelle Akers. So if people don't get back to me, and I'll post their name above. If they don't get back to me, then I will pick another name. Okay, so that's something I'm starting this month, because if they don't PM me, and I'm gonna post it. Okay, so I'm gonna post the name so people can see it for like the next 3 days, and then if somebody doesn't PM me with, hey, I want 1 hour, or hey, I want the gift card, then I will re-pick names. Okay? All right. And I'm thinking I might start doing this twice a month now. What do you guys think? Okay, so you guys, number one, to get put on the list, you want to share. okay? And I will, my main things are a $25 gift card or an hour with me. If you guys have ideas, please spill. I am completely open to your ideas of what should be gifts. I'm open with that. And don't be shy, okay? I'm not shy, so you should not be shy, okay? So just say it how it is. If I think it's like too much or whatever, I'll say, no, that's a little too much. But don't not share, okay? So that's number one, share. Be open, be blunt. I'm okay with that. And, you know, I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what's in your head, okay? So for those, you can jump off if you want, because this is it, guys. You guys got your tip of the week. We went over the assessments. If you're catching me late, definitely watch the replay. Make sure to share and click notifications, and you will go into the hat for this month. I'm going to do it twice this month, okay? So I've gotten many questions of, you know, on my PM, and so I'm going to say it out loud here, and I'm going to do it again on the group, and I'll also send out an email. So if you're not on my email list, if you join my group, you have the option. There's no, you must give your email. And if you give your email, I'm actually really bad about sending emails. I need to send emails more. Like I haven't sent emails in like 3 weeks or something. I'm really bad about it. So you won't be harassed, guys, because I'm really bad about it. But anyway, I'm going to send out an email to let you guys know what it entails because people have asked. So the IEP package, what it entails, okay, is it is an investment. I do not lie to people. It is an investment. Okay. But it's basically the investment you want to make because you want everything resolved and done. And then you can move forward and you have a great IEP to go by. And then after that, it's just upkeep of goals, sticking with progress. If there's not progress, then you just play with that. And then services. You make sure you look at every page compared to each other. Moving forward for the IEP, making sure the verbiage is correct. I will look over IEPs for past clients. They'll say, hey, I don't want to deal with it. Can you just come to my meeting? And that's super cheap compared to, you know, what you initially put in for the IEP package. But I do payments. I work with you. Relax. All right. So it's 4 hours IEP makeover. All right. That's when you and I, after you give me your documents of IEPs and progress reports and evaluations and all that, we talk in depth. All right. Then I'm going through your IEP page by page. I'm editing it all. All right. I redo your goals. All right. And then what happens is I take over from that moment forward your emails. Okay. So I send the first email and they're not always friendly. Okay. And I'm getting your Scholastic file for you. I mean, everything. We're talking about service logs, you name it. All right. Then I'm asking for evaluations and I'm asking for specific evaluations. Okay, so this is all within the first email. And then I take over emails throughout the whole process. So you don't have to deal with the stress. You basically don't have to do anything other than show up at the IEP meeting and talk to me. Okay? So then basically you get 3 extra hours so we can talk before the meeting, the IEP meeting, after the IEP meeting, and throughout the time. And then, of course, I go to the IEP meeting with you. All right, so that's the package. That's what's involved. And then, of course, yes, I just do 4-hour IEP makeovers, and then you go and fight for your child on your own and whatever you need. But I do all of those intricacies. I'll write emails for people. I write complaints. I file for and request for due process. I advocate for clients in due process and in mediation. So I do all that fun stuff. All right. So that's a lot of what I can do. Okay. So if you have any other questions, make sure to message me. Make sure you're recording your kids virtually and making sure you're keeping on top of what's going on. And if things aren't progressing, things aren't working out, you really need to address it. And if I can help in any way, I'd be happy to. But you need to make sure that it's being adhered to their IEP, and there's nothing wrong with going back to the table right now. All right, I don't care if you had an IEP in March, right before COVID happened. It's been 6, 7 months, guys. You need a reevaluation no matter what. Unless you had one within the last year, you need a reevaluation. And you need to know where your children are right now. Where's their present levels? What's their baseline? You want to know all that. And if you don't, then it's very hard to gauge their progression based off goals that were established with consistent education versus 6 months of non-consistency. That doesn't mean that the parents didn't teach them or caregivers didn't teach them. It just means that there wasn't that consistency, which many of our children thrive on. Okay? So make sure to PM me if you were a winner. I will post your names, and I want you guys to make sure that you voice to me. Just PM me and say, hey, this would be a really cool gift to give out each month. Or even if it is a big gift, then I'll consider maybe doing that like once every 3 months or something. So I still want those ideas. So come at me, PM me, let me know what your thoughts are. I do want your thoughts. I'm also going to ask my group, so I know that I'm going to be bombarded with what they got to say. But if you're open and you're not on the group, type in the search bar, Autism Mama Rocks the IEP group, and join the group. And it's a great group. I love it. No negativity, judgment, etc. Lots of help. And I'm pretty strict about that, keeping things healthy. I want healthiness going on. And, none of us can judge one another. We're not walking in each other's shoes, So, I think it's important to have love and compassion for each other and to make sure that we support each other in any way we can. All right? Because a lot of times we're not getting it elsewhere. All right. And that's why, many of our IEPs and situations are the way they are. And so, the goal is to get our children everything they need. And yesterday I said, and I meant it, I've done IEPs and worked in 30 different states. My goal by the end of 2021 is to work in all 50 states. All right. And yes, I am going to do a retreat in 2021. So stay tuned and definitely join the group. All right. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. It's a legal document. They have to start emailing and requesting meetings and find out. Yeah. So if you guys have any other, Jan, okay, let me see. Did I miss some questions, guys? Yes, your son is more important than anything else. And hopefully you got my messages today. And, we can talk about that, your hour, okay? If that's what you're choosing. Ave says, if the school is telling me that they can't enforce the IEP because of what where are you located? Is it Eve, CR? What state are you in? Yeah, I'm doing a due process in Tennessee now. All right, so Ave, where are you located? North Carolina. Okay. All right. So we can talk. PM me. All right. They're not providing your child FAPE, okay? And they are disobeying the law, the federal law, and they need to be held accountable. And do you have that in writing where they said we cannot adhere to the IEP right now? And it showed that he is 10 and we live in California. What can school offer? Hi, an auto-processing disorder assessment done, and it showed he has it. He is 10 and we live in California. All kinds of things you can get for auditory processing, speech, OT, dependent on if he has reading issues, all kinds of things, because auditory processing is how things go in and how things go out. And so that's expressive and receptive and expressive language. And that's important. 10-year-old IEP son is home by himself trying to do work. It is not working. I bet. Wow. And then, yeah, Ave, give me a call, or not call, just PM me, and I'll help you out. Thanks, Jan. So guys, make sure that you PM me if you have any questions. All right, I'm gonna hop off here. Ave, make sure you message me. That is crazy. And did you say, did they put it in writing? Did they email you and say, oh, we can't provide the IEP? God, that would be awesome if you had it in writing. Do you have it in writing? Probably not, right? I mean, how great would that be? I mean, not great, but you know what I mean. It would be great, but not great. If they actually put in writing, oh, hey, so sorry, we can't provide idea to your child because of COVID. That's not how it is right now. And, you know, California, in fact, by law, are now put a provision in play where all schools, districts need to put in play a emergency, I don't know what they're calling it. OSEP ordered them to do it. It's like an emergency plan of action where in California, I think I was talking about this yesterday, where they have to put in, you know, wildfires and all those things because of the things that happen in California. So they have to put in provisions for these disasters and have something in place so that IEPs that within those 10 days, so that 10-day timeline, okay, that is in reference to behavior, suspension, all of that stuff. So 10 days is the maximum amount of time that a child can go without FAPE. Okay? And if they are suspended for longer periods of time, past 10 days, then FAPE has to then be provided. It's the same thing with a disaster, same thing if, you know, whatever happens, 10 days is 10 days is 10 days, but a lot of people reference it to like suspensions and stuff like that. So 10 days is the timeline. After 10 days, school days, all right, they have to provide FAPE, 100%. Okay, so make sure to share this, guys. Click notifications so you know when I go live. I will be going live again on Thursday night, and tomorrow is the Q&A over in the group. So if you join the group, you will be able to join the Q&A tomorrow. All right, so I will talk to you guys soon. Make sure to PM me for those who I've spoken with, and have a good night. Bye-bye.